Hello and welcome to the site view on Asake Online. My name is Leslie Moy. In today's program, we are continuing with the coverage of the Nkulumane constituency by-election, the road to 20 December, where the by-election will be held. Remember, this comes after the death of Honorable Desire Moyo, who was the Nkulumane member of parliament. So the government then through the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission then called for a by-election to fill that seat. So various parties, there are 9 candidates who are up for election on the 20th of December. So in today's program, I'm joined by the ZAPU candidate, Mr. Vivian Siziba. Salam gera. Lingasitshela ke ngibe ngamafitshane lizethule uthi nali ngubani singakafike uthi sixoxisane kakhulu ngokhetho loluzayo.
Mina nguVivian Viyo Siziba. Ngokuzalwa ngazalelwa kuGwanda district kusabelo sabo umdabu kwe iGaranyemba communal lands kusigaba seBesta school eMakobane. Ngakhulela khonapho enzi primary school yami khonapho eBesta primary school. Azokuthi sensenzi apha yayigcina ngo-grade 5 during that time ngoba vele ama-primary schools amaningi ayengaphansi kwe-church ngathi phansi kwabezenkolo ama-missions. So iGaranyemba happened to have grade 6 and grade 7. So in 1971 I went to Garanyemba primary school. So I did my primary education in 2 primary schools. I completed grade 7 at Garanyemba primary school in 1972. Thereafter I went to Gwanda High School. I can safely say I was already grown up. You see, ufunda kwakudala uthonsa ukuthi usuqalisa sasenza ama form 1 silamase. I was 17 by then. Since from 1972 or 16 somewhere there, because it was 73. Yes, I was 17. Then by that time in the second year, you remember there was just the taunt when they released the nationalist leaders. We used to hear about the nationalist leaders, Joshua Nkomo, kwakunyenyezwa. It was being whispered because the party was banned. So people abadala bekhuluma. So you see, when you have got that enthusiasm, the appetite, it just grew out of me unexpectedly. So I just got interested. So when they got released during that time, that's when we became active as young students at Gwanda Secondary School. And apart from that, there were people who were quite influential, whom we can say they were political role models in our area. That was Daud Mabuza and Benson Zulu Ramaphosa. They were very active. In fact, most of the cadres who went to the struggle, they were influenced by those guys. Daud Mabuza served jail time in Kami, and even Benson Maposa. And then I happened to join him at Wawa prison, at Wawa detention center. I was arrested in 1975 when I was trying to go for guerrilla training, and then I was acquitted. I was acquitted of all charges after having been remanded at Kami Maximum Prison. That's where I met the likes of Johnson Mkandla, a lot of captured guerrillas. That was my first time to come across the guerrilla because it was difficult during that time in our area. You know, it was away from the border. The African National Congress, we didn't know that in South Africa they were also fighting for freedom. In fact, we didn't know that they influenced our politics in the country.
So you're captured, and then afterwards, did you then manage to join the struggle?
Right, let me just come there. Then after my acquittal, I was briefly released. I went home. Unfortunately, I couldn't even spend 2 weeks. They came and collected me. During that time, the country was reeling under the state of emergency, which imposed custodial detentions, or let me say administrative detentions. You will be just picked, whether you appeared before the courts of law or not. You will be detained without trial. In fact, the detention was based on suspicion. If you are suspected to be a nuisance, to be a threat to the existing political order, a white man's order, you will be picked up. Those who were being acquitted, even those who completed their sentences, for instance, I met Tyson Makete, they captured guerrillas. They captured Tadluza Chiane, Msimanga, a lot of them, but most of them are deceased now. They were already adults. They are deceased now. So after they are released, completing their sentences at Camp Maximum Prison, they were detained. Some of them were Kwele, and then they joined us at Wawa Prison. Those people motivated us even to go. They played a major role in motivating us. I was just one of the youngest detainees during that time at Wawa Prison Service. Wawa Detention Center, not the prison service. The service for prison officers, Amakat Jail.
So you eventually got to...
Right, after my release, you remember there was that internally negotiations between Muzorewa, Ian Smith, James Tambaza Skerema, and those disgraced other nationalist leaders. You know, when they lost control of the guerrilla fighters, because for you to be reckoned with in Africa during that time, in our struggle, you must have been in control of an army. So ZAP was in control of the army, and then ZAN was in control of the army. So those lost the faith in the liberation forces. Then they had no choice. The Reverend Damaning Stole, and they had to negotiate with Ian Smith. They reached an internal arrangement. You remember that internal arrangement, which was short-lived, which gave birth to Zimbabwe Rhodesia, a short-lived state of Zimbabwe Rhodesia. So I was one of the first detainees to be released. That was 13 April 1978. So after my release, I managed to, I stayed from April to September. And then I got a job before I left. I was working for Sound Credit Stores. In fact, I worked with Dowd. After his release too, he worked for Sound Credit Stores. You see, why they released detainees? Because they wanted that arrangement to be seen to be genuine. And the effort was, they were trying to give the impression that they were doing something tangible, and also to lure the guerrillas who were fighting to join the internal settlement. But then unfortunately, after the shooting down of the Viscount in September 1978, after that arrangement, they unbanned ZAP, they unbanned ZAN. Then there happens to be, the war never stopped. And then after the shooting down of the Viscount in September 1978, they followed up all those detainees and arrested them. As I told you, that people were just being, and after all, the state of emergency was not revoked during that time. That makes it very clear, because they were supposed to even revoke the state of emergency. So I realized that I was going to be the victim once more of detention, so I didn't want, so I had to join the liberation struggle via Botswana.
All right, I saw any questions, but I know we might end up diverting and going into...
That is the background. Then I can say, after my return, I joined the army. I left the army. I joined the army in 1981. That was attested. And then left the army in 1994. Joined the civilian sphere of life to pursue other avenues. That's when you remember our army, even today, is not allowed to delve in politics. The defense regulations or even the Defense Act is uncharitable to those who decided to make in politics or to join politics as a serving member. So I left the army, and then I decided to also play my role in ZAPU, the party that brought me up.
Yeah. Now coming to the local politics, I know you spoke about your active participation in the liberation of this country, which I think is a story for another day or for another program. But now you joined ZAPU during its revival. How has been your participation in the party? Obviously, ZAPU has participated in previous elections, national elections, even local government elections. Maybe just tell us your role and your participation in the...
Yes, I've been active in the structures of
ZAPU. Right now, I'm the secretary for the Bulawayo province. So we're trying, ZAPU went through very difficult situations. You remember the Kukura issue. People were killed, and then people lost lives. Even today, some people are not accounted for. So, and it lost a lot of properties. That has got an effect organizationally when it comes to resources. In fact, when it went to 1985 elections, it had already lost a lot of properties. So those were supposed to be the cash cows for the party activities. Those properties were supposed to generate income. But then it was never to be. But we are trying to pick up bits and pieces. It may not be easy, but I think we are moving in the right direction. And I believe people will eventually, you see that situation of ZAPU being swallowed, coerced into a unity accord. It was just a terrible thing. And it went for a long time without, and then you realize that the people who made it to work properly, it was those people like Joshua Nkomo, that generation of politicians, until Tabengwa decided to leave after those people left.
Okay. Maybe let's come to the Nkulumane constituency. Why is ZAPU interested? For instance, maybe let's start there. Obviously, there was that vacancy that became available, obviously, through unfortunate circumstances when Honorable Moyo died. But why is ZAPU interested in that seat?
ZAPU is a liberation movement or as a party. Of course, we cannot deal on liberation. People get tired. We've got young people, and more so, our politics, the regime never bothered to allow a certain flow of political activism in the country. So there is unfinished business. What is ZAPU went to war and fought for, it has not been completed. We have got a lot of issues that needs to be settled. Even when you come to the defense of human rights, defense of the Constitution, there's a lot of issues that attract ZAPU to participate in such politics.
Mm-hmm. I think by the number of candidates that have expressed their interest in that seat, it shows Uguti. It's some are saying that it's a very key constituency, especially even for Bulawayo. I don't know whether you share the same sentiments. Looking at Nkulumane as a constituency.
What are you saying? You're saying the candidates are too much, or?
No, I'm just saying by looking at the interest and how people some have said that Nkulumane is a very key constituency in Bulawayo, and the number of candidates also shows that maybe if people didn't care about the seat, maybe we have one or two. But it shows that really people are keen on getting that seat. But as a party or as an individual, as a candidate, do you see it as a key constituency?
Definitely, there are certain issues that are on the plate now as we speak. Apart from the issues that are affecting Nkulumane constituency per se, it has got a national relevance as far as its situation is concerned now. You see, when people go to vote, they express a certain a message. They convey a certain message. Now they talk of this 2020. I have no quarrel with the vision 2020 as such per se, but the issue of extending the term limits, the mutilation of the Constitution, people should express themselves, because by-elections of this nature, I think you have followed the by-elections even internationally, especially the British. I follow the British mostly. When people go, when the results are issued, they will say, look, it is now a parameter. It shows whether the Conservative is going to win or it is they will be battling around issues. So this one, I think it is a meaning. The only fear which I have is that people may not participate, they may not turn up in their thousands to express that view. That is my fear. That the candidates are plenty or not, but I know that if people turn out in large numbers, it's just meaningless. Their participation, and now is their constitutional right to participate. That is what we fought for. There is no need to panic or to be apprehensive about that.
And maybe let's look at Ubaba Siziba. Why should people vote for you on the 20th of December?
Firstly, I've been honored by the party. I think when the party selected me, they realized that I'm a mature person who've got an experience who can add a strong voice for those who are critical in Parliament, especially when they are exercising oversight. That is very important.
And what else? Maybe you can expand on that. Why should people, like you say, that there are other issues at play? So what should make a Nkulumane resident who is a registered voter wake up on the 20th of December to go and cast a ballot for Mr. Vivian Siziba?
Well, I'm a resident there. 1. 2, I'm familiar with the challenges which they face as in the constituency. I can sum it that way.
What are these issues? Maybe let's go deeper. What are the issues that are affecting Abantu Nkulumane?
Firstly, I'm going to represent people of Nkulumane at national level. You know, the responsibility of a service delivery on many matters is the responsibility of a local authority. But there are certain issues that they are beyond the local authority, where they need that sort of national intervention or interaction. For instance, we look at the issue of water service delivery. Water service delivery is the responsibility of a local authority. But then the local authority cannot do anything. The provision of bulk water is the responsibility of the national government through ZINO. And then we've got even the purification of water. Yes, it can ZINO can deliver the purification of water. We need foreign currency. Who is responsible for the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe? So we need persons who are going to articulate those issues at the national legislature.
Mm-hmm. Then coming to the campaigning period, see parties are already on the ground. Candidates are going around meeting people in the constituency. How far is that gone off in terms of campaigns?
Campaigns are in progress and they are going well. They are going well. We are covering a lot of ground and we want to make sure. And apart from that, we have to convey to people that they should turn. We have to alert people and convey a message to them that they must come in thousands. Because staying behind and expecting things to sort themselves out. And there's a process. You don't expect you elect a person today and say, yes, faith, what is a process? Nobody can solve those problems. For instance, we've got our brother who has passed on. He was doing his best where he could. But then we have to take over from where he left. Because I'm not taking over that constitution from nowhere. I'm not starting from nowhere. He has been there, and I have to learn from there what he has been left, what needs to be improved.
You did highlight that by-elections, by their nature, obviously have a low turnout in terms of voters. Is there a strategy around that for you as a candidate or for ZAPU as a party to ensure that its members go out in their numbers to vote? Because obviously, past trends, we find that maybe 2,000 or thereabout people, or slightly more than that, will come out. And And also the election being in December, just 5 days before Christmas, will that also have a say in the turnout? But what are your mitigatory strategies to ensure that you get people to go out in their numbers to vote?
Yes, that one, they are in progress. Mitigatory measures are in progress. As we speak, this interview is one of them. So we have got a lot that we are doing so that we convince people to come. Apart from we are conducting door-to-door campaigns. You see.
Then maybe let's come to the issues around. I know Zach, as a candidate, do you have had access to the register for voters? Have you have any issues, or everything is going on well?
So you mean the voters' roll?
Yes.
It has been delivered. We are looking at it. That is going to influence our strategy as well. But I can't tell you what we are doing exactly. What we are doing. Others are going to steal those tricks.
Obviously, that's an internal party strategy. But maybe in closing, if you are to maybe give us maybe a list of 5 key issues that you would think, if you are to be voted in as the Nkulumane Member of Parliament, key issues that you want to push in Parliament. I know you spoke about the issue of bulk water or service delivery. What are some of the issues that you feel the constituency would benefit from you as a Member of Parliament?
You see, there are a lot of things that we have to dwell on. But in the first place, I think what is important is something that I left out. If I'm elected there, I cannot just start from anywhere. I have to establish an interactive relationship with the structures that are there on the ground. Otherwise, on my own, there is nothing that I can push without those people. We have the councillors. So, councillor and an MP, they are public elected office bearers. So the relationship should be interactive rather than competitive. There are issues that the local authority needs to be addressed by the central political authority. So it is me who takes those issues to the national legislature. So I mean to say the MP who takes that issues to the legislature. That is very important. Even those square leaders, umasibuthe kwampana kuqakathekile. Ama-councillors, labona mazibuthe ngama-stockholders ku-constituency. Without them, you cannot push the agenda. You cannot be effective as a legislator.
Mm-hmm. And what are those issues that you would want to?
There are a lot of things. For instance, welfare issues. Welfare issues. You know, you look at those houses in Nkulumane. People who bought those houses were workers. They were people, because you couldn't queue for a house or register for a home when you're not employed. They wanted a pay slip, but it's no longer the case. And what is painful is that most of those people are aged now. They are supposed to be earning their pensions, but there is nothing. Even that is a NASA, it's a PTS. An elderly person goes there to get $10 or $20. Cannot even pay for water. The situation is terrible. So I think we have to bring that to the attention of the executive so that they address the relevant departments. For instance, the Department of Social Welfare. We have the people, elderly people who were supposed to earn pensions. Their investments were washed down the drain by hyperinflation. Hence, we were talking of the NASA being a PTS. And again, I believe the way it is administered or it is run, it leaves a lot of desired. And a lot of people, there are rumors, people who have been arrested for what. All those things, they need people to push them so that they think of those people. They must address the issue of those people. We have got orphans. That all those things fall under Social Welfare Department. They need to be taken care of. They talk of empowering youth, but if you cannot, if the government cannot take care of them at that early stage, what type of empowerment to the youth is that? From that age, ECD, we are talking of those people who are poor should be assisted. Right now, if you looked at that budget, people there is that beam which is supposed to assist the poor. Now the government owes the schools 98 million US. What is that? And then you talk of empowering the youth. There are no, those students who go for tertiary education, there are no grants. That is where they should be. That is where empowerment of the youth should start. Because you are building the manpower, preparing for the future. To pick example, who has graduated in the street is not enough. What about those who have not managed because they couldn't afford the fees? All those things, they need to be looked into. Even in the road infrastructure now, we are looking at the revenue collection in our situation. The central government has incapacitated the local authority to maintain the roads, to build the new roads. By what? By collecting the entire revenue of vehicles which are in this city through Zinara. They leave nothing. At one time, I looked at, I forgot how much, but I think it was around 15 million or so, which was collected around here. Guess what the city council was given? Let me just make it an example because the figures may not yet be accurate. If Zinara collects 15 million, guess what they give? They may give them 1 million or 800,000 US. What do you do with that? What can the local authority do with that? So we need to address that. The government should change its way of collecting that revenue. The majority of the revenue should be left with the local authority. And it is the one who started blaming the local authorities for doing nothing, yet they are the one who are disabling those local authorities.
Then when it comes to Nkulumane, there's one key issue that I know, having been covering that area for some time. There's also an issue around informal traders. There are a lot of informal traders within that constituency. Maybe what are your plans around ensuring that these people are taken care of?
The issue of informal traders, the issue of licenses and the vending stores is the responsibility of the local authority. I remember I participated at one time when we were invited at the city council chambers by the town clerk. They wanted to evict informal traders in the city center, you see. But then the government at the end reneged. They did not assist those people. They were supposed to provide the manpower. We're drifting towards the 2023 election. So I think they just left it up to date. So the issue of informal traders is for the local authority, you see. You see why there are a lot of informal traders? It is because of the economic meltdown. So what should be addressed? The government should create a condition that will allow investors to invest so that we have a few traders. Because you see, informal traders, there's no security there. Those who are working, they've got pensions, what medical aid, but informal traders, if it just falls in there, it ends there. That is a desperate situation. That's why we say the government should intervene in some of the areas in alleviating, trying to alleviate the suffering which is experienced by the population. Yeah, that one is a really brought a pertinent issue. Because why the informal traders, it is because the economy is in an intensive care unit. Now it is the responsibility of the government to create a condition that will allow investors to come and open up the industries. There's no any other way, because it's like even the Amapawa, and people say, Amapawa van. I always tell these young people, you know, liyabona kakusela cycle track at is. Those cycle tracks were used by workers. In their first of call after dismissing, it was a beer garden. But we no longer have those factories. Even that's why the City Council is reeling under cash for challenges. It is because there's no employment. Those industries have been closed, which have been a source of income for those people who managed to pay. Because there is a benefit if a factory is existing, there is a benefit. Those workers, they are able to pay their services. They are able to pay their fees, whatever it is.
All right. Thank you so much, Babu Siziba, for taking your time to come and talk to us. We wish you all the best in the 20 December by-election. Hopefully we'll get more opportunities to have a sit down and discuss some of these issues with you. Thank you so much for joining us. That was an interview with Mr. Vivian Siziba, who's the ZAPU candidate for the Ngulumane constituency by-election that is taking place on the 20th of December. Let's meet again in the next edition of The Side View. My name is Leslie Moore. It's bye for now.